Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Atheist Experience. It's May 22nd, 2011, according to the regular calendar, but I like to think of it as PA0, the beginning of the first post-apocalyptic century. I've been trying to get a hold of Martin on long-range walkie-talkie. We're having some problems, I think, with communication in Austin and problems with some studio issues happening. I don't know what's going on with communications, and there's some problems here on the roads too. I don't know what you might be experiencing in your areas. I know that people are driving like maniacs here. I actually saw somebody pull up to a stop sign and just slow down and roll through like they didn't actually stop. And I've also seen several people that were changing lanes and not using turn signals. So it's kind of scary. It was a little bit scary driving into the studio. People are starting to freak out and panic, I think. And like I said, I can't get a hold of Martin, and my cell phone service isn't working. He hasn't shown up, and I hope he's okay. I know he posted yesterday, so I'm fairly certain that he's still left behind with the rest of us. But I figure I might as well just go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead with the announcements and try to hold it together, waiting for him, I'm sure he'll show up. So this is a live public access television program. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin. For more information about the Atheist Community of Austin, you can visit the website at www.atheist-community.org, or you can find our frequently asked questions page there, a calendar of events, and also you can email the show at tv@atheist-community.org, and that goes to all the co-hosts and some of the people behind the scenes as well. We can't answer all the mail we get, but we do try to read it all, and we do answer the ones that appear to require response. ACA also puts out a weekly internet podcast, The Nonprofits. You can go to nonprofitsradio.com. That's profits, P-R-O-P-H-E-T-S, for more information. And I should also mention that after the show, normally we do an after-show dinner at El Arroyo, and I think the one tonight is probably going to be a meeting to try to figure out how we're going to coordinate and organize this post-apocalypse and survive the tribulation. We'll be commiserating the fact that we're all actually left behind, and that's going to be at 1624 West 5th Street here in Austin, and I'm really starting to...
I made it!
Oh my God! Martin, I'm so happy to see you. I was really starting to freak out. Oh my gosh, you're okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
You're okay.
But somehow we're not exactly sure.
All right. Oh, good. Good. So, yeah, you look like, I mean, you were so prepared. So how was your drive in?
Fine. I thought there'd be more zombies, though.
Yeah, I did see evidence of raptured people. There was a shoe on the side of I-35. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, no.
But,
Well, that's at least a sign. Good.
Okay.
So we know that we're not,
Yeah, there was a few people that made it to the studio. Brave people that were willing to come out and risk it. Yeah.
The freeway coming up here was clear. That never happens.
Which road did you take?
35.
You did?
Yes.
Weird.
Yeah. I mean, literally, like, no one on it. Well, there were, like, except all the other cars.
Well, yeah, I saw the other cars. And one thing I did notice, though, was not one with a Jesus fish. Did you happen to catch that? Did you see any Jesus fish on your way up here?
No, actually.
There you go.
But, well, I think we're just going to have to,
Yeah, hold it together.
Like
Don't
do.
panic and
We'll
hold
be
it
fine.
together.
So, how are things?
So I've done the announcements.
Good.
and talked about the coordination meeting that we're going to have, the post-apocalyptic planning meeting at El Arroyo's after the show.
Right. They'll probably still be there. I didn't call, but they'll...
I didn't even think about it. I was so freaked out.
Well, that happens. I can't blame you. I mean...
Okay.
It is the apocalypse, after all. Right. So, what's on the agenda today? We have calls, or just going to just pretend like it's a normal day?
We have some Rapture reports from yesterday. I mean, take your
okay.
pick.
Well, you just start with what you got.
Sure, I'll just take a couple of these. And yeah, yesterday we were taking Rapture reports on Facebook, and so we've gotten some people that posted in. I think it was 6 p.m. in Melbourne, and I did say that I was going to use names on this, so if you post it, I assume it's okay. So Donovan B. in Melbourne posted at 6 p.m. Melbourne time yesterday and said that he came outside to have a look. The door was a little hard to open, and he just heard car tires screech, but there was no other apparent signs. So I think traffic was already starting to get crazy in Melbourne.
Okay.
And again, real names, I said I'd use them. So Jarm67, and I said he was...
That's a real name in some language.
Yeah, feeling the effects of some sort of Jesus fog. And I think that had to have been some sort of a divine fog that made it hard for him to see his computer screen based on what else he had said, because he said that he was having trouble finding the right spot to post.
Oh.
And then he also seemed to be saying that Brisbane is screwed because nobody there appeared to have been raptured.
Ooh.
The entire town of Brisbane left behind. Entire town condemned. And some of the wildlife had disappeared, and he posted that there also appears to be a distinct lack of giant scorpions, which is a bit disappointing, as they looked awesome in Clash of the Titans. And so what I'm thinking is that, I mean, I've never been to Brisbane, so I assume it's just an animal in Brisbane.
Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah.
They have big bugs in that region. So I assume that when he went outside and saw no giant scorpions, that struck him as very odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe they got raptured. Maybe they were the ones.
Well, I asked that because he did say he saw spiders, and I was like, okay, I don't know why scorpions and not spiders. I don't know what the deal is with, and also sometimes animals just act weird.
Some kind of arthropod schism.
They have this sixth sense about, like...
We're about to get raptured?
Yeah,
okay.
And they know these things. So anyway, he, let's see, Will C. said he was under the bed with his cat, and they were terrified. No final meal for us except dust bunnies. Farewell, my friends. And he was jealous because I was having scrambled eggs as it was morning in Austin. And and so he hadn't gotten the rapture yet here. And then I got a report of the pretty amazing one, Rapture by helicopter. Mel E.
Well, that's kind of cheating, isn't it?
No, because listen to this. This is what's cool. Okay. Mel E. said, somebody did just get uplifted to heaven. My husband's in the Melbourne bush, and someone came up their motorbike and was injured, so they had to call the ambulance, which required a helicopter. The man had broken ribs, so someone was uplifted to heaven by air ambulance. What I said was the hospital, everybody knows that the hospital is often the last stop before heaven. So the hospitals are like God's waiting room. And as far as I'm concerned, it might have been, yes, it's sort of unorthodox kind of rapture based on what we were envisioning, I think, but still it's just, stages to heaven as far as I'm concerned, you know what I mean?
Well, sure, but I mean, that's kind of a hell of a note if you're just gone to the hospital for, a broken ankle or something.
Right, but then you get raptured and it's like bonus points. Broken ribs and then you're in heaven? You probably thought you would be laid up for like 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, but then, I've always wondered, when you're in heaven,
right?
Do you look like how you did when you died?
I hope I look like 10, 20 years younger.
Right, but if you ended up, if you were in a car and your car, had an argument with a train and lost, and you were in the car at the time. So like, would you look all? I mean,
I don't know. That's a good question, though.
Yeah.
And maybe if we get a theist caller later,
because
they can answer.
I'd at least like the broken wrist to be taken care of if I'm going to.
What am I thinking? If we get a theist caller later, they can't answer because they're wrong.
Well,
if they're left behind,
but that's fine. We're here to
know?
soothe them, though. We're here to.
Yeah, I know, but I
just
was thinking we could ask them the question about what you look like in heaven, but it's clearly that would be asking the wrong person because that person wouldn't know anything about God if they're still here.
Right.
Let's see. Somebody else, Dan B. I'm being eaten alive by locusts as I smack type this. He says nothing to report here. Mark H says. Well, it's the locust, right?
Yeah.
The swarming locust. Mark H.
That could be anything.
All good here in Japan. We had an earthquake, but it was another aftershock from the big one on 3/11, which I think is a little presumptuous of Mark to just assume it's an aftershock from that other earthquake rather than the beginning of, the tribulation.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just ignore the date, right? I mean,
well, that's true. Yeah. I mean, it's apparently because it's math.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
I mean, if it was any other day, sure, an aftershock, but not on this day. No way. Don't be foolish, Mark. And then Bob M says it was 9 a.m. Greater Boston area, northeastern United States. The supermarket's crowded, which I'm thinking maybe looting had started.
Right. Yeah.
It's 3 hours later. No panic yet, but shortages are evident. Guacamole, Newman's Own, wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Guacamole and some lemonade, and some cookies. An elderly woman gets incensed at the lack of pickled artichokes. The tension is rising. Be strong, my friends, be strong.
Well, that's touching final words, I'm sure.
Donovan B. says, heading to bed now, 11:30 Melbourne time. Went for a walk at 6:30 with my girls and housemate to get dinner. A couple of people were already in the noodle shop. We suspect panic buying. We had to wait a fair while to cross the road, so we think traffic control systems may be affected. When I looked across the road to the pharmacy, there was a man out front. When I looked back, he was gone. Can't say for certain he didn't ascend. Hang in there, everyone. We can get through this.
Well, do we want to take a minute and talk to some of these survivors?
Sure, if they're on,
yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Oh, and we've got some reading for the the fallout shelter or wherever it is we're gonna hole up in and that. It's want to thank Thomas Quinn for sending his book. What do you do with a chocolate Jesus? We may when we run out of food later on, we may very well need to know. So thanks for sending that. And shall we start?
Go for it.
All right. And look who it is. I think it's our buddy Mark.
Okay.
From
who must be really depressed.
I know, always on two. Mark, you there?
Hi guys, this is Mark. I go to the Austin Stone Church.
Yeah.
I think Matt went to our church on Easter.
Yeah, wait a minute, why are you still here? Weren't you supposed to get raptured yesterday?
Yeah, I know people said that. Did you laugh when it didn't happen?
What do you mean it didn't happen? Haven't you heard about all the chaos out there in the world? There's shortages of artichokes in the supermarket. I mean, if that's not a sign, what is?
But I don't think a shortage of artichokes is what they said. They said...
No, it's not what they said, but I think that was the PR, the people here on Earth that were hyping it really just didn't know quite what they were looking for, I think.
Well, we can only go by what our far-flung correspondents are telling us.
Correct.
So otherwise.
And the photos.
Yeah, well, my friends are over at my house right now, and we like your show because, you guys take some time to go on TV and tell us about indoctrination. You don't have to do that. You just choose to do that. So we think you're really nice people.
Well,
that's a change of heart.
Well, thanks very much.
Because you could just stay home and do
all those
something
things
else,
atheists do.
You decided to make a TV show.
So after the buttering, what's the question, Mark?
Well, we've been doing. Matt said if something is true, then it has nothing to fear from investigation, because if you investigate it, if it's true, the light will shine more brightly and expose the truth, he said. So we've been doing an investigation, but some of my friends, when they do an investigation, their parents get mad because at my church you have to do submission to the God of the Bible. You have to submit to Jesus. So if you do an investigation, they get really mad.
Does that seem right to you?
Well, I think Matt was right. I think maybe the reason you don't want to do an investigation is because you fear the investigation because it's fake. It could be fake. Like if you're a kid and you try to do an investigation of Santa Claus, your parents might just tell you to go to bed because they don't want you to, if they put cookies and milk on
Sure. I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Then when you wake up, it's gone. But if you say, well, I want to actually see Santa Claus, they never let you see him. They just say, oh, go to bed.
Yeah, pretty much.
What did your parents, Martin, what did your parents say about God
About God?
when you were a kid? Yeah.
Oh, well, my parents they're quite devout believers.
So did they tell you God was real or indoctrination?
Oh, I think my parents believe that God is a real being, yes.
And what did they tell you? Did you ever talk to them when you were a kid about God?
Oh, yeah, quite a bit. And probably no differently than most Christians in their upbringing. And I regularly attended church, I'd say until I was about 14, 15 years old. So, that's...
Tracie, what did your parents say? They said he was real, right?
Correct.
And you said you believed in God and you went up to strangers on the street and tried to teach them about Jesus.
Yeah, I went up to people that I knew, like assistant professors. I went up to people in nightclubs. I was really obnoxious.
You weren't nervous?
No, because it was just like I didn't care. That's what Jesus wanted.
Did they laugh at you?
Actually, what's weird is a lot of people actually came to church.
You mean it worked?
Sometimes it worked, yes. Sometimes I did get, mocked, but sometimes I, would get somebody that would show up. I would tell them, this is where my church is, this is when we meet, and you're welcome to come. We'd love to have you, and sometimes people would show.
Oh, but you didn't just invite them to your church. You told them God was real.
I mean, yeah, I talked to them about what we believed, and I'd have a conversation with them, and then I would invite them to church. And, that was part of proselytizing, was I wanted them to come to my church and learn the truth, which I thought my church was teaching at the time.
Well,
I thought that's what Jesus wanted me to do. That's what it said in the Bible. I was supposed to help people and convert them.
But if I went up to a stranger, I'd be nervous because maybe they'd just laugh at me.
But Jesus told you to expect that. Didn't he? Look what he went through for you. And you'd be afraid to do what he wants you to do because you'd be nervous? Look what he did for you. If you believe that, how could you be afraid of being nervous and being rejected by somebody? It's not like they're going to hurt you. He was nailed to a cross, according to what you believe.
Okay, well, I just wanted to talk about some of the investigation my friends did.
Okay.
Because this is my plan. I have an ambitious plan. I want to make an investigation with you guys. We can put it on the internet, then one person will watch it, 100 people will watch it, 1,000 people will watch it, 1,000,000 people will watch it, and then soon everyone will know if it's real or if it's just Santa Claus or indoctrination.
Well, what do you have in mind?
Well, the first thing is, I talked to Matt made some really good points on the last show. He said, why did God say if your wife doesn't believe you're God, you should stone her? Deuteronomy 13:6.
Right.
Deuteronomy 13:6 to 10.
Yeah.
Do you have a Bible with you?
We don't have one with us, but I do. I know the
I'll get
passage
one.
about
Yeah.
Okay, you know the
killing your
passage.
family if they try to tell you not to worship.
It's very clear.
Yeah, I agree.
And I said, I think that's wrong because you shouldn't hurt someone if they didn't hurt anyone else.
I agree.
You know, if they just believe in another god or they want to have sex with someone they love, then you shouldn't say they're an abomination or you shouldn't stone them.
I would agree.
You know, and they said, well, that's just simple morality. That's not God's morality. You know, that's simple morality.
Did you think that was any kind of morality at all to say to hurt people?
It's a different word. Morality doesn't mean be nice to people. It means like do what God said.
According to these people that are saying it's okay to kill someone who doesn't agree with you.
Yeah, like
Yeah, it's
like you know, humans aren't the only ones who do nice things. You know.
Right.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Sure.
oh sure.
Well, you know, elephants are special animals. Did you guys know that?
Well, I think all animals are special, but go ahead.
But animals have a really big brain. And like one time in India, an elephant was helping locals lift logs by following a truck and placing the logs in pre-dug holes upon investigation, upon instruction from the elephant trainer.
Okay.
And at a certain hole, the elephant refused to lower the log. The elephant trainer came to investigate what the holdup was and noticed
Somebody
a
in the
dog
hole.
sleeping in the hole. The elephant only lowered the log when the dog was gone. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The elephants have morality. It's the same thing, right?
I've always said that all social animals are endowed with they have to have a way to interact in a group, and you can only do that if you have some understanding and regard for others.
Yeah, and
So
primates
yeah,
do
I mean,
much the same
social
thing.
animals,
Yeah.
you know, have this. They have to, in order to be social, have the capacity to work with others in their group.
It's
So,
like, you know,
yes.
the stories here about dolphins rescuing swimmers.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing.
Well,
Well, I mean, I agree that this is when people see people doing this and they think that it's something that is like unique to human beings, they're not really understanding that they are a social animal and that this is something. I mean, what you're looking at, animals that are studied for what you're calling morality are usually they look for whether or not this animal understands fairness and whether or not it understands equity, and they do that with reward systems and training, and whether or not the animal will react the same if it gets rewarded, doesn't get rewarded, if the other animals get rewarded. And you can test that and see, does this animal understand when it's being cheated? Does it expect something because another dog got something? Does it expect something because another chimpanzee got something?
Yeah.
And when an animal can understand that, it has the basic core of what we tend to think of as like a moral understanding. I would say that's fair.
Yeah, and can I tell you something else really interesting?
Sure.
Did you know animals, when an animal dies, they have a death ritual? They show a keen interest in the bones of the dead elephant. They are often seen investigating the bones with their trunks and feet and remaining very quiet. Sometimes elephants will visit the graves, the elephant graveyard. When an elephant is hurt, other elephants will aid them. And sometimes they stand around the bones and
Okay.
they like.
All right. Let me
Yeah,
cut
I
you
mean,
off
we-
here. I mean, we do understand social species.
yeah, we get that elephants are
I mean,
awesome
I'm
too.
glad
but-
that you've investigated this and you found this information. We are aware of this information, and I guess what I'd like to know is, can we kind of wrap this because we do have other callers?
Yeah.
So what is the point here?
Yeah, what's this joint investigation you'd like to do?
Okay, well, we wanted to know, a lot of people said the reason they believe is personal experience. And we asked them, we said, well, how did you know it was Jesus and not the God in India that has 10 different arms?
Or just something that happened?
Yeah, and they said the reason was, they just knew, or maybe sometimes they saw Jesus, like they saw it looked like Jesus.
How did
Like
they know what Jesus looked like?
Well, like a white man with a beard.
Okay,
Right.
then they didn't see Jesus.
Right, because I mean, Jesus would have been, you know, Semitic. He would have had a rather dark complexion.
Yeah, he was an ancient Jew.
Yeah, so you know, it's unlikely that
white. He would have been looked more kind of like Mid-Eastern.
The image that we have from all those European churches is almost, you know,
is based on European models.
Yeah, so it's unlikely. What you're seeing there again is, you know, people having some sort of experience, and they filter it through a received belief system, right? Such as Christianity, which is the dominant belief system in our culture, and they derive their conclusions that way. You know, it's fitting, and again, I'm taking it as I'm taking their word for it that they had some kind of experience to motivate this, but they filter that information through what they have already been taught to believe. So yes, I think indoctrination does play a role.
Yeah, because in other countries, in India, they when they have a personal experience, they see a different God. You know, they see the God with 10 arms.
Of their culture.
Yeah, so if Jesus is real, why does he only visit people who already got indoctrinated for Jesus? Why doesn't he visit the people in India where they believe in the guy with 10 different arms?
Right, Mark. These are questions that we talk about frequently on the show, and things that we bring up frequently. Is there something new that we're going to hear from you? And I'm not trying to mock or anything. I just want to get to a point because I'm sure that the viewers are wondering where this is going.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, we've only got you know, we're almost halfway through the show here, so we want to go ahead. We want to go ahead, get you to your point, move on to the next folks. Okay.
Well, we just did a long investigation, and we don't think there's evidence that it's actually real, because whenever they make up a proof for God, that's usually not the reason they believe, because they already believe when they are kids before they even heard what the proof was.
I would agree with that.
Right.
You know, so you don't actually have to do the proof, because that's not the real reason. Because they're just making something up because they already believed before.
I would agree.
Yeah. You know, we get these logical proofs, many of them all the time, thrown at us by certain kinds of Christians, certain apologists, and there's not a single one of them that I never heard of any of them until after I was atheist. During all my church-going years, you know, that I never heard a sermon from the pulpit, and we went to a very big, very densely populated, you know, a very wealthy Baptist church in Houston. Never once heard a sermon from the pulpit on, you know, Plantinga's, you know, modal logic, you know, variant of, you know, Anselm's ontological argument or anything like that. I never heard the transcendental argument from God from the pulpit. These are proofs that are created after the fact to appeal to atheists, and it's because, you know, while the whole you just have to take it on faith thing is fine for many believers, I think have finally twigged to the fact that we like to think of things scientifically and rationally, and we want evidence, and so that's what. But I've never known an actual church-going Christian who was converted from non-belief to belief by virtue of any logical proof for God that I've ever heard. So anyway.
Yeah, because apologetics, like, they're apologizing, so you know they have to make stuff up, or it wouldn't be a very sincere apology, you know?
Well, apologetics doesn't quite mean that, but I mean, yeah, it's.
They should apologize.
Yeah, the apology, you know, who needs to apologize are, you know, people who get other people to spend $140,000 of their life savings on ridiculous.
Speaking of,
you know,
the Rapture
situations that you know. So, otherwise, well, listen, Mark, we appreciate your call. We appreciate you thinking about all this stuff. It's, you know, keep thinking about it. You know, write us, call us again at some point, and we're gonna let you go, and we'll talk to you another time. All right, bud?
Okay, put the investigation on the internet so everyone can see it. Okay?
We will, because the internet is how to reach people. Okay, who are we at?
Who's that?
Call 1. This should be interesting. We're going to talk to Charlie in L.A.
Hi, Charlie.
Charlie?
Hello.
Thanks for waiting.
How you guys doing?
We are good.
Yeah. You know what? I'm an atheist homophobe. How do you like that?
I doubt that, because people who are actually homophobes never really call themselves that.
I know that. You know what?
Yeah, it's
that
like
is because that is because they're afraid of punishment by gays.
Oh, I mean, what? I mean, isn't? Yep. Well, but that just goes to show how silly they are, isn't it? I mean.
I'm sorry. Wait. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
Yeah. I'm just saying that's very silly, isn't it? That's a silly thing to be afraid of.
Well, actually, a lot of people are afraid of punishment. I mean, if you're going to be harassed and get called names, and being falsely accused of being gay, that's not a
You
fun thing, is it?
mean like gay people put up with every day? Yeah, that must really suck.
Well, yeah. So, are you really saying it's okay to pick on gays?
No.
Well,
don't.
then why are you why are you downplaying people picking on people who label themselves homophobes?
Well, I'm simply saying that people who are homophobic usually reject that label because they see it as being a negative, and they don't actually see the fact that they dislike gays as being negative. And they deny, they don't like being called homophobes because they always say usually, oh, I'm not afraid of gays, which is, I just disapprove for X, Y, whatever reasons they give, and it's usually religious reasons.
Do you know what is homophobia?
Homophobia, I think, involves fear of the possibility. Someone who is a homophobe, I think, is afraid that they themselves might experience unwelcome homosexual attractions.
Oh, really? Guess what? You're dead wrong.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, the way study shows homophobia is rooted in disgust, not fear. And disgust is actually an evolutionary instinct.
Okay, wait a second. If it's not fear, then it's not a phobia.
Yeah.
Now, of course, because the word homophobia is a misnomer to begin with.
Then you're not homophobic.
So why would you call yourself a homophobe? Have you just admitted that you're afraid of gays?
I'm sorry?
I mean, so the fact that you refer to yourself as a homophobe means that, and you say the word, it has nothing to do with the phobia, disgust and fear are two different things. So if you're calling yourself a homophobe, have you not just admitted that you are afraid of gays?
Are you ready? Are you ready to get debunked? Because I'm about to do it right now. Are you ready?
Wait a minute. I just asked you a question. That's all.
Listen. I'm about to debunk your claim. Are you ready? I'm asking you, are you ready to get debunked?
What claim did I make?
Okay. Here's the deal. The term homophobe is when people use the term homophobe, they describe people who are simply disgusted by gays. Because an expression of disgust is being labeled a homophobe. So being the fact that you are familiar with the term homophobe, I'm using the word to associate it with people who are being called homophobe. But what my point is, study shows the term homophobia is not a phobia. So even though it's the suffix is a phobia, it's not a phobia. So the word is misleading by default.
Then why do you call yourself homophobic?
Yeah, if it's misleading, why do you yourself use the term to refer to yourself?
Why? Because, listen, the word homophobe itself is deceitful by default. So
why do you use it?
Why
do you use it?
Because study shows homophobia is rooted in disgust.
Well, why do you label yourself homophobic if you know that it's an incorrect label?
Because I said it's a misnomer.
Yes, why do you use it?
Fallacy.
Right, so
why do you use a label on yourself that you know it does not correctly define what you are? Do you just want to confuse people?
No, actually the term, listen to me.
We're trying.
Listen to me. The term homophobe, study shows that it's not fear-based. Are you with me? Are you with me?
It doesn't matter. I understand what you're saying, but
that does matter. Because the term homophobia is not fear-based to begin with.
Then it's not a phobia. Then you shouldn't use the label.
Yeah,
you called up and said you were homophobic.
Okay, if that's the case, no one should use the label because
then why do you?
The feelings associated. Listen.
No, you listen.
With the word is
here we go.
Okay, you're on hold. You called up and said you are homophobic. And then you said you don't have fear of anything that's related to this. And you said that phobia does equal fear and that it's wrong to use it if fear is not involved.
Yeah.
If there's no fear involved in what you're describing as your position, and it's wrong to use homophobia when there's no fear in that position, why the heck did you call and say you're a homophobe? Go. Did I do it?
This one.
Okay.
First of all, you made a false statement. You said that I claimed that homophobe is about fear. I never said homophobe is about fear. I was saying it is not about fear.
It has to be because phobia is about fear.
The term homophobe the suffix misleads people about what homophobia is all about. I didn't say the term homophobe is not a. I didn't say the term
dictionary
homophobe is about
says
fear.
that any phobia is about fear.
Yeah,
the dictionary says that phobia means fear. If there's no fear involved, then using phobia is incorrect. You called up and said you were phobic.
I didn't use phobia. I use homophobia.
It doesn't matter what you put in front of it. Phobia means fear. It means an irrational fear.
I agree because the word.
Well, then, okay, so then why use it to refer to yourself if you don't have a fear position?
Because, all right, studies show.
All right.
I'm done. You're done.
Yeah, look. Yeah.
Come on.
No, you are done.
I'm sorry, but that just wasn't going anywhere. It was wasting time, and we have real callers.
Yeah, I mean.
So let's go.
Talk about. I mean, that wasn't even going in circles. That was going
I want
to
to apologize to the viewers for that travesty of a call.
I mean.
Go
all
on.
right. Good grief. Okay. Let's talk to. He's long distance and he's been waiting a while, so we're going to want to take him first. We have Winston in Brisbane, Australia.
Brisbane or Brisbane?
Brisbane. It's probably Brisbane,
Okay.
and they didn't get it right in the control room. So, Winston.
Hello, Martin. Hello, Tracie.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for holding.
No problem. I just wanted to talk about a sermon I heard in Japan last year.
Okay.
It was recently after the Haiti earthquake, and the theme for the sermon was how people can be happy without being ridiculously wealthy. And what really annoyed me about it was that he put words in the mouths of the Haiti victims. He said that they were happy even though they had just lost their homes and their families. And to me, that's no better than sociopathic charlatans like William Lane Craig saying, "Oh, God has a morally sufficient reason for allowing atrocity A, B, C, D, and so on."
Yeah.
So, can you just give me your opinion on that, please?
Well, in terms of just how offensive it is to say something like that in the first place?
Yeah.
Because we're in full agreement. Yeah. I guess that the problem of evil has been a real stickler for the Christian faith for centuries and centuries. And despite, I guess, close to 20 centuries now of highly motivated theodicy, I don't think it's ever really been effectively addressed. What you get is an exercise in spin control, like you see from William Lane Craig, where he will say things like, God has a morally sufficient reason to allow, and then you list whatever atrocity there is, babies being raped and, the Holocaust, what have you. Now, of course, he never says what that morally sufficient reason is, because he then goes on and says, well, God is beyond our understanding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's all a big dodge, cop-out, right? But the purpose of it is, I think, simply to make believers feel better about stuff, right? I mean, it's the whole, I need an emotional Band-Aid now because there are things that go on in the world that are terribly upsetting. And so, it's a lot like, there was an earthquake devastated some town, or a tornado wiped out all these homes. So let's get together and pray, right? Well, the prayer, these entreaties to God, of course, they're not going to a God, but what are they for? Well, it's this communal thing. You get together, a bunch of people, you do a thing that makes you feel better, right? You're talking to yourself, but so it's this kind of self-therapy kind of situation, and I think that is what you probably see a lot of in some of these Christians who would say things like, well, the people of Haiti have, who would presume to speak for people they have no business speaking for, making claims about emotional states or conditions of qualities of life that they have no business speaking on. But it's a way to make themselves feel like, hey, God's taking care of the situation and these people are going to be fine. Even if these people are not fine, as long as they can tell themselves God's got a plan and it's going to work out, that's really all that's necessary.
Yeah, and then we have no reason to predict earthquakes in the future.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if God wants evil to bring what they call a greater good out of it, then the logical conclusion is to go out and commit evil, because that's what God wants.
Well, if it's all part of the plan, right? It's like, and it's funny, one of the big defenses of the problem of evil is the appeal to free will, right? When an atheist brings up the obvious thing of, well, God could just easily save this poor, horrible victim of this crime, then they immediately trot out the appeal to, God cannot interfere with our free will because that's apparently a sacrosanct thing, and several problems with that. First off, what you're basically describing is a God who favors the free will of evildoers over those of the innocent victim, right? Because the innocent victim presumably has free will herself.
Yep.
But if God is not interfering with the situation, clearly it's the evil person, the assailant, the wrongdoer, whose free will is being given a pass by God. The other problem is. Well, it comes down to prayer. I mean, Christians on the one hand say, well, God cannot stop this evil act from happening. He could not have prevented the Nazi Holocaust. He could not have prevented, some child from being sexually assaulted. He could not have, XYZ, because that would be an interference. He can't interfere with free will. He can't interfere in human affairs, because that would somehow supersede our free will. It would make us mindless robots. That's usually the argument. But then what is prayer? When Christians pray, aren't they simply aren't they asking for interference? Dear Lord, help me get this job. Dear Lord, help cure me of this. I have heart trouble. Whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, that's a direct entreaty for interference in your life.
The other thing is, what kind of free will are you interfering with to stop an earthquake or a plane going down? Or for the plane's free will. I mean, really, what are we?
So the reason you hear a lot of these inconsistencies and the reason that Christians can say things very casually that seem incredibly cold-blooded when to them they are expressions of kindness is, I think that a lot of it is a way of simply feeling better about things. It's a big emotional security blanket.
Can I just add? I know a woman. I met this woman and she was molested as a child, and she has I think it's like a relative of hers who consistently tells her that it made her a better person. Yeah, and to me that's one of the most disgusting things a person could say, because I was like, wow, so...
But I would give a pass to that. A victim sometimes needs to do what they need to do psychologically to overcome. And they can, and when you deal with something like that is going to be a horrible life, I can't even imagine, right? You would do what you would need to do emotionally, psychologically to grow, to survive.
Right.
And if you want to take them, say somebody who has that happen to them. So what do they? So they go on to become like they start up some foundation for sexual assault victims, or they don't, or they create, like groups of people who will come together to help other victims, things like that. That's a way of trying to find the good in something evil that happens to you. And so maybe that's
what I suggested to her. I suggested to her that the next time the woman says that to her, that she ask if the woman recommends that all children be molested, so that they could all grow up to be better people.
Yeah, it's a kind of ends justify the means thing.
Yeah. I mean, I told her that she's fortunate that she turned out okay, and that I'm sorry that she had to struggle through a lot of her life to turn out normal, which most people who aren't molested get to turn out normal without going through that. She had to work through whatever she had to work through just to get to okay.
Yeah.
And to me that was just like so hideous for somebody to just, like Martin was saying, it was so cold-blooded to just say that, well, what you went through, hey, it made you better. And it's like, no, it damaged you, and you're lucky that you got back on track and that your life was salvaged from it.
But maybe that's what
sure, exactly.
I'd be willing to give a person, like an individual, like a victim who says that about themselves, if that's their way of feeling about it and that's how they want to deal with it, then I'm willing to give them the leeway to do whatever it is they need to do to heal. But now, if some counselor had said to that woman, you know what? What you went through as a child was really, really horrible, but it's going to make you a better person. In the end, I'd be like, here are my genitals. Please, it's just sort of that would be offensive. Yeah, that would be inappropriate and disgusting.
I think it's the wrong thing for someone to say to someone else. Yeah. If she feels like there was anything gained from it, that's up to her. But I don't think it's anybody's place to tell her that. I don't. I think it's just the way people think in order to try to make sense of dealing with a God that they don't think, is going to inflict horrible things or allow horrible things. I don't know. It's weird, but they tend to go with allow. They don't have any problem with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd like to finish by talking about John Calvin for a second. John Calvin was not a righteous human being. He was not a saint. He was a sociopath who didn't like to take responsibility for himself. And that's why he created the doctrine of predestination, I think.
And he was really into original sin, too, I think. He was into that human depravity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Accentuate the negative.
Yeah.
Very good life philosophy. But anyway, listen, Winston, thank you very much for your call, Winston.
All right, thanks for having me on.
Stay in touch.
Thank you, I will. Thanks. Have a good one.
You too. Okay, well, let's see. Who to take now? Tony's been holding the longest, so we'll start with him.
Okay.
On line 3. Tony, thanks for waiting.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hi.
We're fine.
Me and my girlfriend are a huge, huge fan of you guys, especially Tracie. Tracie's so awesome, man.
Thank you.
Hi.
We agree. Tracie's awesome.
I just wanted to talk about, because we actually come from a Mexican background.
Okay.
And we're very highly Catholic in my family. Well, I'm not anymore. I'm an atheist now. And I started recently reading the Bible, especially the First Testament, and I just wanted to ask you guys if this stuff is all written there. Like, for example, when Eve gave the apple to Adam, I guess God punished her by pain of when she has babies.
Yeah.
So now they're supposed to pay the price for every time they have a baby, all that pain and all that suffering. And that's punishment from God. Is that correct? Am I reading it right?
That's how I understand it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you hit other passages like when you're supposed to beat your child to death if he's rude to you.
Oh, yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, and I showed all these passages to my mom and everybody, and they keep coming. I don't know. They keep saying that I'm not reading it right, I'm not understanding it right, or I get the passages where he says Jesus loves you, and you're supposed to take that literal, but you get to a passage where it says he wants to kill you, then you're not reading it right. You're looking at it in a way.
Did they tell you what it really is supposed to be saying when it tells you to stone your own kid?
No, they don't. They just say I'm interpreting it wrong, and maybe they said I'm supposed to read the passage before that or after that, and I have done that, but it doesn't seem to contradict that,
And have you come back to them and said, here's the passage before and after, and, it's still...
Yes, I have. I grabbed their own Bible that they have right there, and I opened it and I show it to them, but it's just so amazingly ridiculous how people believe without even reading their own book.
George Smith talks about this phenomenon, and he has one of the classic books about atheism, the Case Against God, and he just points this out. There is literally nothing a Christian will accept as evidence of evil behavior or just of being evil at all on the part of their God. They just won't do it. So I have heard, one great example is the story in 2 Kings chapter 2, with sending the bears to slaughter the 42 children who made fun of the prophet Elijah. And I have heard Christians spin that into, well, they weren't children, for one thing. Even though, and I looked up something like, you can go to BibleGateway.com, and there are dozens of different translations, and I looked up several at once, and almost all of them use the word children. A couple use the word youths. But they have spun it to, suddenly this little gang of children who are just there to mock Elijah and call him names and make fun of his bald head, they somehow transform into this gang of like Crips or something, right? These 18-year-old thugs who are doing signs and apparently putting him
like hopped up on crack.
Yeah, like actually putting Elijah in danger of his life. Like it wasn't just name calling. So,
and they were insulting God, not just Elijah because he was a prophet.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, it just goes nuts. But
so it's the degree to which they will spin these interpretations is really quite a fun thing to observe.
Well, what I tell them is I just flip it on them. I tell them I'm going to be a true Christian. I'm going to have 8 wives. I'm going to have slaves. I'm going to sell my daughter for 30 pieces of silver, and then I'm just going to start massacring people who don't agree with me.
Why don't you put her on eBay? Start with 30 pieces of silver and see how high you can go.
There you go.
Yeah.
oh, if I see people working on Sunday, I'm going to go slaughter them too.
Here we are. Yeah, see, to the woman he said, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. So there you get the whole, you know, women suck.
And what's really funny is that the punishment for Adam was agriculture.
I know.
Yeah.
Agriculture was the curse or whatever. Yeah. Farming. You will be farming. That's a lesson for you.
And it's all because God didn't want his creations to know the difference between good and evil.
Right.
He didn't want them to know the difference.
There's also another passage where I guess if the woman is not a virgin when she reaches the altar, and I guess they find out she wasn't a virgin or something, they get to beat her with stones in her face too, I guess. Mm-hmm. How do they determine if she was a virgin or not? Like, I don't know, before she hits the altar, I don't know. How do they do it?
Well, probably.
Yeah.
Probably a little
less
known about
research.
that, the better.
Yeah.
I would think so. But yep, it's a pretty twisted and demented whole set of mythologies from the ground up.
Well, I just want to tell you guys that you guys have actually supported my atheism even stronger now, and I have actually cousins and brothers and family members that have turned atheists, even small kids, and we're just rooting for all you guys, and we're going to keep watching your show, okay?
Well,
Thank
thanks
you.
very much, and we're glad that you're holding out on the
Glad you got left behind with us.
post-apocalypse day.
Yeah.
So you just be careful out there, because it's as you can see, it's totally crazy.
Yeah. We're roasting in here.
Okay. We got, oh, there it goes again.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's all right.
More communication problems.
Yeah.
It makes me nervous.
You know, and here I loaded up on shotgun shells and everything. I mean, zombies. I was expecting zombies.
I know.
And it's just, light traffic. I mean,
If you don't have
there
a
are more
god,
fun
you
ways
need a
to do an
teddy bear.
apocalypse. All right. Okay. Oh, Charlie says, when you hung up on me, I was trying to explain that I only use the term homophobe to describe myself because other people do. I was trying to use a familiar term to get the point across quickly.
But then he wanted to argue about the term. And
Yeah.
it's just like, there doesn't need to be an argument about the term. Just say what your position is and done.
Yeah, you were not getting the point across quickly, and you really were going around and around in circles. And if you want to email us at tv@atheist-community.org.
Yeah, give your
further.
position. Don't give us a confusing term that doesn't reflect your position.
Yes, tell us what you think would be the accurate term to use. Tell us what you think would be the proper way to talk about your position.
And why we should even care what your position is on homosexuality.
Yeah.
Because we're atheists.
Yeah, and but apart from that, we're not going to take your second call. So let's see. Line 2 is Keith. Keith, are you there?
Hello?
Hey, there you are.
You're on, Keith.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
We're fine.
All right, you guys have some amazing patience, I have to say.
Thank you.
Just, comes with the territory, I guess.
I had a very short debate with a Christian friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And it was basically, I was just asking, they obviously say you have to believe in Jesus in order to get to the Father and so forth, or basically you go to hell if you don't believe in Jesus, and if you just believe in God, you know that whole story. Mm-hmm. But so I asked him, what about the people in maybe I'm trying to think of the most remote region I can ever fathom, in the middle of the Amazon jungle, like the tribes or whatever, that people wouldn't be privy to that kind of information. Do they really deserve to be burnt in hell because they're not, born in a Christian nation amongst Christian people? And he kind of paused for a little bit, and his answer was that Jesus is appearing to people all over the world all the time. And he's like, don't you know this? And I'm thinking to myself, how do you know? Was that on the news? I mean, the reason why I'm calling in is because you see this on a more on a broader scale. So I figured, do you hear that from a lot of theists, or where does that answer come from?
I'll tell you where it comes from.
Desperation.
There's a musician I enjoy. He calls himself Voltaire, and he plays some goth dance rock stuff like that. It's kind of fun. But he does funny songs, right? And some years ago, some friends of his, he went with some friends to a Star Trek convention, which he'd never been to before. And he discovered this thing in that culture called folk singing, which is where they take, like, so they have these little get-togethers where they sit around with guitars and they play songs, but they change the words so that they're all like about Star Trek and sci-fi and stuff like that. And he was just like, why did I never think of this before? This is awesome. So he recorded an EP of his own Star Trek songs called Band on Vulcan. And one of the songs is called The USS Makes Shit Up. And this refers to the part in almost every Star Trek episode where, in order to explain what's been going on in the plot, they just start making shit up, right? So what your friend is doing is he is sailing on the USS Makes Shit Up, because he has no way of knowing if Jesus is appearing to everyone around the world. See, this is what's great about superstition and irrational beliefs and religion. You can just make shit up.
Right.
And how do you test it?
Yeah,
right?
and the fact is, if people could be saved because Jesus appeared to them, then why is preaching necessary?
Yeah.
What is proselytizing for?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
No, I know. It's mind-boggling how people buy into it. I just don't get it. You know.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I really never read the Bible, but I've never ever seen a credible argument from any theist. So I wouldn't even waste my time reading the Bible unless I want to be like some kind of professional debater. But I mean, it just seems like, and for most of them that do think it's the Word of God to not want to read the Word of God, because most of them I find that the little I know about the Bible, I know more than they do.
Sure.
Yeah,
and
even not.
They don't even read the Bible, and they're the ones that think it is the inherent Word of God. It's unbelievable.
It's well, they take what their pastors say at face value, and it's there's no back and forth in their church environment, right? You sit there in your pews, you listen to the sermon. There's not a Q&A afterwards, right? I mean, they do Bible study, but the Bible studies are sort of geared not to read the Bible critically or analytically, but simply to get a specific message is being taught. But anyway, listen, we appreciate your call. I want to try to take one more call before we have to
all right, thanks a lot, guys.
sign off
Thank
and brave the hordes in the post-apocalypse. But Jay would like to respond to Charlie, and he's been holding for a while. Hello, Jay. You're on.
Hi.
Thanks for waiting.
Hello, Angie. I hadn't talked to her. I mean, Tracie, I hadn't seen you in a long time because we don't come up to History Building no more. We go someplace else for our meeting.
Okay.
I am an old gay man, and this is what I'm going to say to the guy. He doesn't understand the word that he was saying, nor does he understand gay people. Just like Pelosi, the Speaker of the House. I wrote her a letter and showed her my discharge record. I've got 2 Bronze Stars. I'm not bragging about them. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But what I did to earn them, with they bringing this up, I wanted that 9 dudes that I did save, where they say, hell bells, you're a gay man, don't help us. This is my question. Until you know the person, don't judge them. And I'm an old man. I'm a Native American. And we've caught enough flack being just a Native American also. And I said, it's not funny when we hear things, and now I see the Spanish people coming on with their war bonnets on their program that's on Access, talking in Spanish, and that irritates the crap out of me, but what do I care? Because they're not true Americans as far as I'm concerned as being a Native American. My father used to cover up who he was because he was more or less ashamed of it. Well, I'm not. I'm also used to go to the Christian church, but when I found out all the anger of being discriminatory in some ways, the Christians were to different races and to different beliefs of who you are, I said no. So I'll go back to my Indian heritage and believe in my spirit gods instead of the regular God in the Bible.
Well, we appreciate you sharing your story, and thanks for that, and thanks for your service, too. But we are out of time, and we have got to go.
Yeah. El Arroyo, 1624 West 5th Street.
Are you
Thanks
ready
to
for
the
this?
crew.
I don't know. I mean,
We'll give it a shot. We'll see
yeah.
if we can get there.
Okay. So what do you want to... Do you want to ride shotgun this time?
Sure.
Okay.
Somebody needs to.
Yeah, definitely.
I've got the shotgun.
We'll do what we can, people, to survive, and all of you, don't worry, it's...